Hello and welcome back to another video on my series Formula One's are about. This time round discussing, the Baku Grand Prix and looking ahead to Singapore. So, Baku. Just for context, recording this the Wednesday, a week Wednesday afterwards, or a couple of days out actually from the Singapore Grand Prix. So, yeah, just had time to reflect in terms of the things going on. And I'll be honest, wasn't a great race in my opinion. It was just yet another example of this year just showing it up to be it's just another qualifying year, isn't it? Just where you qualify, there's not really many changes for position in the race. So, I mean, the perfect example of that, you look at it, you go Lando Norris started 7th, finished I think 7th. I think he finished 7th. I can't remember, but obviously didn't gain that many points in the championship. Given what happened to Oscar, which, completely and utterly, shambolic of a weekend from him, bidding it in qualifying and then bidding it in the race, lap one, with, I'm going to be honest, we've not seen a mistake like that from him. So, seeing it like that, I mean, you look at Carlos Sainz as another example. I mean, amazing achievement to get that podium in the Williams, especially with everything the bad luck he's had this year. You're looking at mechanical failures and just not quite hooking it up with the Williams so far. Sticks it on the front row when in those tricky conditions, which, I'll be honest, at one point we were like, I think there were a lot of people going, please let there be another red flag. Please let there be another red flag so we have Carlos Sainz on pole. Because we could have had a potential for a Carlos Sainz, Isaac Hadjar, Liam Lawson as a top three, which, if we had those three as a front three, given the fact that it's so hard to overtake this year in the series, it could have been an all-timer just through qualifying. But unfortunately Max did Max things and stuck it on pole, and when he's on pole and you've got Carlos Sainz and Liam Lawson directly behind him, there was nothing else was going to happen apart from him waltzing away and winning that race. Like, there was literally nothing else was going to happen. So, as I say, I didn't enjoy the race personally, just nothing happened. And the thing is with Baku, you always pray for a safety car, because of the two races in 2017 and 2018 where absolute carnage happened. People were driving into each other. You had Lewis and Seb, I think, that was 2017, obviously behind the safety car. You then lead into the fact that we had Lance Stroll getting on the podium, Perez getting a couple of podiums when he was in the Racing Point, or Force India, whatever it was called at that point. It was pink, that's, whatever the name of the car was. But again, this year, so if you qualify well, unless you have a bad pit stop, and you just drive, to a good pace, no one can overtake you. The DRS isn't powerful enough, and I'm just trying to think of any driver that really made any moves. Realistically, George Russell, because he went long on those hard tyres, and he went long, managed to get an overcut because the raw pace of the Mercedes was obviously going to be quicker than the raw pace of the Williams, and that was pretty much it. I mean, with George Russell, that pit entrance, he must have gained half a second, maybe even a second, just by doing what he did. I mean, we could argue whether that should have been allowed, but that was so close. And I mean, if he gets that even mildly wrong, that is a horrific accident, because he's being spat from the left-hand wall. He's then being spat straight into the... No. Hang on a minute, I'm just trying to pick the pit entry now. No, obviously the wall's on the right, and he's trying just not clip it. If he clips that right wall, he's going straight across to the left and going straight to the opposite wall, which isn't obviously very far away given the entrance to the pit lane. So you could argue that that's where he managed to get P2, with the raw pace combined in with that. But yeah, I mean, I could rant about Baku not really being a great circuit. The cars can't follow each other. The DRS wasn't really powerful enough. They got that slightly wrong with this occasion. It just needed to be a bit longer because there was just so many cars that were just stuck in a DRS train. And for me, it's something that we need to look at going forward for 2026. And I hope, I mean, it should be at the beginning of a regs that cars should be able to follow each other because the engineers haven't had time to ruin the regs yet. Because that's what seems to have happened with these regs. Back in 2022, we had like Saudi Arabia where people were switched back in each other, going back at each other. You had Silverstone producing an absolute banger as well, where obviously Sainz won. You've got America, those races were great. So, yeah, looking forward to 2026 just for the fact that I'm just hoping that we can have some cars that follow each other. Because, you know, every single race seems to be exactly the same. Bit of a jostling for position first lap, maybe a collision or safety car. And then by the time we get to lap 4, whoever's in front, normally that's been either Oscar or Lando, the other one has to drop back by 2.5 seconds to look after their tyres and obviously stop the car from overheating. And it's happened every single time. And it's just the norm now. It's just like, okay, lap 4, okay, drop back. Nothing's going to happen now unless somebody has an engine failure or someone just makes an uncharacteristic mistake. So, yeah. But yeah, going on to that though, I think a lot of people criticised him, and actually the criticism should be from qualifying, when he just didn't hook up the lap again in Q3. You know, it is reminding me a little bit of Lewis Hamilton in 2016 when he lost the title, where overall he was quick and he was quicker than Nico, you know, in the very, very close battles. And you're looking at Lando this year, Austria and Hungary, he's come out on top of both of them. So in terms of the big head-to-head battles with Oscar, Lando has actually come out on top. But he's just making these mistakes, and Lewis had a habit of just not being able to get the car off the line in 2016, and then combined in with one engine failure, you know, which was not his fault, Malaysia 2016, and people have already started referencing that to what Lando had in the Netherlands, you know, as being the massive turning point for Oscar Piastri. Now, Oscar has had an absolute disaster, and Lando just unfortunately was in the wrong place behind Yuki Tsunoda. And Yuki had the DRS from, I think it was Liam Lawson. I think there was a whole narrative about whether Yuki would go for it on Liam, and it's like, well, it's not in their interest to, because I think once if those two had started fighting proper, then Lando would have just got one of them and then just got the other. So the fact that you had that DRS train with the car in front having the highest straight line speed, lowest downforce, however it is, and maybe it's at these low downforce tracks where this is more prevalent. You see it at Monza, you see it here, you probably won't see it if you're at Singapore. Very much a different track. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens this weekend. I've seen the weather forecast and it also looks interesting on that as well, with a bit of rain. There's a forecast for a lot of rain, which I'm going to be honest, a little bit worried about, to be honest, whether we're actually going to get a full race, because quite often with Singapore, we don't get the full 62 laps. We get, 60, 54. I think on one occasion we ended up with like 47, 48. I think 2022 was very, very low because of the amount of rain that fell just beforehand. So, anyway, we'll see about that. But with Lando, again, he just got stuck. And then, slow stop, and he's had a few of them. And then, he's back behind them and in that DRS train. And because of the dirty air, because of the high straight line speed of the other cars, it doesn't matter how good the McLaren is. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how quick it is in the corners. There's not space for two cars to go into these corners. That's what I was saying. Yeah, there's just no space. So once Lando had qualified there, then to be honest, I wasn't really expecting him to finish on the podium. You had George Russell ahead of him. You had Kimi Antonelli ahead of him. You had Sainz, who had incredible top speed as well. And the fact that the Red Bull had gone low ground speed and low downforce, and it clearly has a lot of speed and low downforce. So it's going to be very interesting with that. So, I don't know what the low downforce tracks are for the rest of the season. Whether Red Bull just go, you know what, we'll just have less downforce and just see what happens. Do they go to Austin and go, with Red Bull and Max, do they go, you know what, let's just do low downforce, let's just hope we qualify well, try to get out in front, and then you could just manage it from there with high straight line speed and just keep the McLarens behind, or whoever it is on that day. It more than likely will be the McLarens. It's obviously just a bad race for them, but yeah, we'll obviously see about that. So yeah, on to Oscar. Oh dear. I have been saying to a lot of friends, and for years, that Oscar Piastri would win a world championship before Lando. This was when he went into McLaren in 2023, and a lot of people, because I'm actually from the Bristol area, they thought, you know what, I was being silly. And up until this race, I'm going to be honest, I was thinking Oscar Piastri's got this. And this was the first time where I'm looking at it going, what have you just done? Like, that is such a silly error. Like, jumping the start, clearly wanting to get the jump on Lando, clearly knowing that if you're in front and you're the lead McLaren, you are going to have preference on stops, you're going to be let through if anything goes wrong as well, certainly until the championship's won. The fact that it isn't won just makes it even more interesting at Singapore. I mean, they both know that if they're not in front, that if they get a better stop, they're going to be asked to let the other one through, which is mad, absolutely mad. I can understand why McLaren are doing it, I can. I think there's a lot of people that want a lot more frostiness and things like that, but we don't know what papaya rules are, and some people probably won't like it. The fact that we haven't had a proper collision between the two yet, that probably isn't helping. That we haven't had, a proper, thing, like that. I think we saw a little bit of this papaya rules, actually, if you're thinking about it, back in Silverstone. I'll get back onto Oscar anyway. But you look at Silverstone, and Oscar Piastri obviously got that penalty. And he said on the radio, if you don't think it's fair, we should swap. And then you look at what happened in Monza, and you just wonder, is that within the rules of papaya, that if somebody has an impromptu slow stop that isn't fair, that's out of their hands or something, when they're prioritising the other, is there is there something there? Because I just wonder, it was a very odd thing to say back in Silverstone, and it was like one of those things where it's like, why on earth did he say that? Why did he, he's got himself a penalty, it's his own fault. For me, I thought it was a penalty. I thought it was a really, really dangerous manoeuvre, what he did. And he nearly caused, on both occasions, cars to go flying into the back of each other, which is just so unsafe. And for me, 10-second time penalty was, for me, probably fair. You don't slam the brakes on that hard. But again, you go back to that radio message and you look at Monza and you go, well, there's clearly something within papaya rules that if one of them has a slow stop that's considered to be unfair, where they lose out because they're just helping the other car cover someone else, it just says to me there's clearly something there. Now, when they won the Constructors, I think this all changes. I think gloves are off when Constructors is won. It's just annoying for me, because I would have loved to see it happen at Singapore. Multi-stop race. I think, with the rain that seems to be incoming, it could just be a no-stop race, one-stop race, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, we're going to definitely see, I think we're definitely going to see a collision between them. I'm still going to predict, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to predict that Mexico, if they're both on the front row, Mexico will be a place where I think they'll collide. And I could also see them colliding in Austin. But you look, again, I still look at this cost cap. The more they crash, the more it's going to affect them designing next year's car. I think there's just so much that McLaren are putting on the fact that, look, we've got a dominant car now, but we want a dominant car next year. If they don't have the money to, they have to keep on spending to keep on getting the new parts for this car, and they don't, have then the money to then spend on next year's car, then both of them lose out. So I think there is this sort of short-term pain in terms of maybe the racing there for long-term gain of having a quick car in 2026. I mean, we're hearing that the Mercedes engine, which the McLaren is going to have, is going to be the best engine. So if McLaren have that engine, that says to me they look like they're going to be quick in terms of engine, but are they going to be quick when it comes to aero, downforce? We've got obviously Honda, which have improved massively since obviously that Honda was in the back of McLaren. They've improved massively, absolutely hugely. It's going to be interesting with that. I still think that every time they've gotten close, they have basically told the drivers off, or they told Oscar off, because Lando hasn't really been in a situation where he's been behind Oscar. It's going to be, interesting if we have Lando behind Oscar and Lando goes for a move. The only time we've had it, of course, is the only time we had it was, of course, Canada, and we know how that ended, so we'll leave it there. But yeah, going now back to Oscar Piastri. This was the first time where I looked at him and gone, you have crumbled under the pressure here. Jumping the start, then losing all those positions. I mean, that threw off Fernando Alonso, and then he just drove into the wall. Like, he just maybe impatient, panic, wanting to not lose out on points to Lando, just worrying about all that kind of stuff. And he just panicked, outbraked himself, and just drove straight into the wall. He just drove into the wall. I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but when it just cut to him in the wall, everybody was like, what on earth has he done? Like, what on earth has happened? Like, everybody, I thought he'd had a mechanical failure. I thought instantly, it's like, he's jumped the start or dropped, in the first instance, it was like he dropped back. He's clearly got an issue. He's clearly had an issue, and it's like, the issue wasn't with the car, the issue was with him, and he just drove into the wall, and then he had to watch, obviously, everybody going by, and I think probably feels a little bit relieved that Lando only scored the 8 points, which now brings it back to a race win, which is interesting. It's really critical now. There is now 25 points between them, which means that if Oscar Piastri has another stinker, Lando could be levelling the championship. He could be. Now, whether he will, don't know. I mean, that's sport, isn't it? That's the thing. Will he, won't he, the point of that? Everybody's talking about Max Verstappen being back in it. Let's just be honest, he's not. He'll have one race where he's back in 8th again and it's over. It might even be this one. It only takes one moment, and it may not even be his fault. I mean, look what happened in Austria. Not even his fault. Somebody drives into him. That is then, everybody goes, well, championship over. The championship isn't on for Max until he gets within, I'd say, how am I going to put a number on it? I'd say if he gets to within 40 points with 5 races to go, then I'll change my tune on that one. But at this moment in time, it's just not. He's just not in the fight. I mean, Singapore is, and this is where I think he's not in the fight. Singapore, I think, is not going to be his kind of circuit. He's just not ever done well there. I think the best he did in terms of qualifying, I think, was ironically 2017. I'm mentioning that year again, but 2017, and he was out by turn 1 because, of course, the Ferraris decided to pincer manoeuvre him. Of course, with that very, very funny tweet where they just factually said that Lando drove into them, but it was like, no. The Ferrari, like Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Raikkonen pincered him. I mean, it was a very unfortunate incident, obviously, that one. But that's, I think, the best. I don't think he's ever been on the front row since then, because the races where that obviously in the previous regs, obviously the battle with Hamilton, we didn't go to Singapore. And 2020, what? Yeah, 2021 and 2020 we didn't go to Singapore. 2019, I think, was Seb who won it that year. I think the Ferrari, but that was around the point where the Ferrari's engine was mysteriously quick. So it's going to be interesting because I think there is a bit of this thing with Max where I think he'll be desperate, absolutely desperate to you know, get this one off his back, to absolutely knock Singapore off his list, because everyone's going to go, well, you didn't win around Singapore. And it's like, and that's the hope of a track, that's the track which Lewis, is what sort of one of Lewis's, possibly Lewis's greatest ever pole lap. I mean, it's up there. Probably, it's always the one that gets circulated. 2018 Silverstone. It's not Silverstone, Singapore. I mean, he might have qualified on pole for Silverstone in 2018 as well. Yeah, that year he had one of the best cars on the grid. But that one always gets circulated around. It's always going to be the meme of, the perfect lap. It's what Saudi almost was for Max in 2021, and what realistically should have been for Max in 2021, but in Saudi. But yeah, it obviously wasn't. So predictions for Singapore: there's rain inbound. If there is rain, Ferrari just aren't good in the rain, are they? I mean, Lewis, I think, will be going into it. Obviously, I'm filming this obviously a couple of days after he's had to obviously put down Roscoe, which is incredibly sad. I mean, life of a dog. I mean, I've grown up with dogs and things, and yeah, it's horrendous. It's a horrendous time for him, and he's very good at taking negative energy like that and just channeling it. I could see him being incredibly quick just for Roscoe. Like, I could see him getting a top 5. But, he's going to have to I'm just hopefully that Ferrari does what he wants to do. That's, which it doesn't seem to be doing at the moment. If it does rain and low downforce setups on everyone, I'm including the Red Bulls here, you'd expect them to. Max is going to be up there, I think. It's Max versus Lando. I just think if it does rain into those two, I think Piastri will be slightly off those two. I don't think he's quite there yet with Singapore. I'm just, predicting that one, but watch Oscar now win by 10 seconds, and Lando and Max to both throw it in the wall. But that's my prediction. Outsider to do well, I think. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple of other people predict this, but probably Aston Martin. You look at Hungary and those kind of things, high downforce tracks. Aston Martin should be strong, so you'd expect them to be up there. I also expect the AlphaTauris to be good. I don't know why, but I just think Liam Lawson is going to back up his performances. He's very good around Singapore. He's got a track record here, so yeah, my surprise package for the weekend will be Liam Lawson. I think definitely Q3, and I can see, if I'm saying Lewis top 5, Liam Lawson P7, P6, something like that. I think he'll beat Isaac Hadjar just easily this weekend. I think obviously Isaac having come here for the first time, so we'll see what happens there. So yeah, anyway, I'll wrap it up there, but yeah, we'll see what happens in Singapore, and get ready for another multitude of a DRS train, because unless it rains, we ain't going to get much overtaking, unless somebody throws it in the wall, of course. Cheers.